Did the 2024 Player's Handbook just reveal the return of two incredibly popular settings fans thought D&D had killed off?
I thought you were dead.
D&D has had a rough go with returns to classic settings in the last few years. From the pretty disastrous launch of Spelljammer, in which D&D seemed to forget to include many rules about, spelljamming, but still found time to make weird, racist backstories for the Hadozi, to the incredibly limited scope of their Planescape box release, and the flat-out weird insistence of tying the return of the beloved Dragonlance setting to a board game no one was really asking for. So 5th edition has stumbled hard every time they've tried to break away from the Forgotten Realms, and in the case of Dragonlance, we know that in our interview with Joe Manganiello, the actor said that not only had D&D decided not to pursue his Dragonlance TV show, but he also claimed that due to lackluster sales of their new Dragonlance rulebook, which was again inexplicably tied to an unwanted board game and was barely 40 pages of rules crammed into a short run-of-the-mill adventure module, that Wizards of the Coast had no future plans for Dragonlance at all.
And I also offered to buy it. I offered to buy Dragonlance. I was talking to people with funds, with money, to try to get it separated, just so that I could get the option and take it out on the town.
And that's a no-go too.
No, they are not interested in developing Dragonlance currently.
And with Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman also basically having to sue Wizards of the Coast just to get their 3 new Dragonlance books written under the D&D brand, that certainly seemed to be the case. But now that we have the 2024 Player's Handbook in our hands, we can say that there are some shocking hints that not only could Dragonlance be making a return, but the much loved and controversial Dark Sun setting could be getting a new lease on life as well. So why don't you hit those like and subscribe buttons really quick, and then let's dive into some potentially good news for Dark Sun and Dragonlance fans.
Good news, everyone!
First, let's look at Dragonlance. The launch of the first attempt to bring Dragonlance into the world of 5e was, to be fair, a train wreck, with Wizards trying to get fans to buy a giant, clunky board game instead of giving them an actual campaign setting book. And we'd largely written off the idea that Dragonlance would ever get another shot at a real release for 5e. But not only is Dragonlance actually listed as a trademark in the 2024 version, which is a major departure from the 2014 Player's Handbook, which made no mention of Dragonlance whatsoever, D&D has gone ahead and commissioned new Dragonlance art for the 2024 Player's Handbook. This new art shows the siblings, Raistlin, Karaman, and Kitiara battling a wyvern, and along with the fact that Dragonlance is mentioned over half a dozen times in the new Player's Handbook, appearing in the sections about worlds you can adventure in, the dwarven and elven species, and more, it looks like suddenly Wizards of the Coast might actually be considering supporting the setting in the new 2024 rules. You generally don't promote a setting so heavily, especially when it got 0 mentions or artwork in the original 5e Player's Handbook, if you have no plans to do anything with it going forward. So perhaps something has changed since Joe Manganiello talked to the D&D execs, because this certainly looks like some kind of new Dragonlance material may be heading our way. Just hopefully this time it's an actual campaign setting and not a massive half-baked board game.
Shit, this got real!
Now, even stranger is the case of Dark Sun, which hasn't had an official source book since 4th edition over a decade ago. In fact, in 2023, Jeremy Crawford and several other D&D employees flat out told us they wouldn't be bringing Dark Sun over to 5e, given how poorly some aspects of that setting have aged. And in their defense, Dark Sun does prominently feature slavery and basically the magical equivalent of eugenics, so you can see why they might be hesitant to step back into that world. But so many elements of Dark Sun were unique and amazing, like the scarcity of metal, forcing players to rely on breakable bone or chitin weapons and armor, the entire Preserver versus Defiler magic system, and that brutal desert-based setting that didn't rely on tired or trite Egyptian or Arabian tropes. You had giant muscle-bound elves running across the dunes fighting Thri-kreen, who were giant, silently gifted praying mantis creatures, and of course you had terrifying cannibal halflings. So imagine the shock of fans when they skimmed through the new Player's Handbook and found multiple instances of Dark Sun being referenced as a setting, including in the halfling section, so shout out again to those crazy cannibal halflings. And Dark Sun is even the first setting listed in the trademark section of the index. For reference, there was no mention of Dark Sun whatsoever in the 2014 Player's Handbook. And with Dark Sun also being mentioned in the section about world you can adventure in, clearly something is in the works, and Dark Sun may finally be headed for its first official release since the 4th edition campaign setting book hit way back in 2010. So has Wizards of the Coast found a way to remove the more objectionable aspects of Dark Sun while keeping the core of the setting intact? And are they really going to bring it back after more than a decade? We'll most likely have to wait till late 2025 or early 2026 before we get official word on a new campaign book or setting release for Dark Sun or Dragonlance. But thanks to this new Player's Handbook, fans of both settings finally have some hope that Wizards of the Coast will bring their settings into this new D&D 2024 world. Or in the case of Dragonlance, actually bring the setting into 5e and not, once again, some weird giant board game nobody asked for. Now it just remains to be seen if they've learned from their past mistakes and managed to actually stick the landing this time. So are you hyped for the potential return of Dark Sun and Dragonlance? Let us know what other settings you'd like brought back in D&D 2024 in the comment section, and don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons.